Normally when I review a tank, I might have to give some insight as to why I'm reviewing it, or whatever, like why this specific tank this time. With this one, I think it's pretty obvious, if you know me. It also took me a while to come up with a good name for it, because I wanted it to make sense. And while the tank's kind of silly, I didn't want the name to be silly, because Damien ruins a lot of tanks for me with his interesting nicknames. So I didn't want to do that. And it took a while to find one. And then while watching one of the games you'll see later, it just kind of clicked out of nowhere. The BOOMBOX. Anyway, what is this thing? Well, if you're one of the lucky people who wanted this tank and bought it in the January money grab event auction, or bought it because you had gold pouring out of your ears left from holiday ops and didn't actually plan on playing it much, you managed to snag yourself an absolute treat similar to that of Bean Boozled. For the majority of you who don't know what Bean Boozled is, or want more ideas for gross things Damien and Goose can eat during their charity streams, Bean Boozled is essentially a bunch of jelly beans that all look the same, and you spin a wheel and it lands on one of them, and you have to find it and eat it. Thing is, each bean is one of two flavors. One of them is pretty good, like grape, and the other one's quite undesirable. Now, why am I talking about jelly beans? You came here for a tank review. Well, I mentioned Bean Boozled because that's essentially what you're gonna get with this tank. One game can be flat out just miserable start to finish, and you feel like you want to uninstall this trash game. And then the next game, you just uninstall the game from someone else's computer. Obviously, there are in-betweens, but who cares about those? Sure, it can be humorous to watch me World of War shipping around the battlefield, making loud noises and getting citadels. Okay, this is actually a lot more similar of a comparison than I thought it was going to be. Either way, let's do a little rundown on this loud noises machine, shall we? Take the classic IS tank. Classic. Now stop it about 80% of the way through the factory. Down a bottle of vodka for good measure. Put a casemate on it and a 152mm gun because you can. Then you realize not even the USSR had 152mm guns just kind of laying around like that. Down a second bottle of vodka. Once you're all the way through 2 bottles of vodka, dare one of the engineers to make a transmission go the other way around. Why? Who cares? While you wait, down a bottle of vodka for safekeeping. Once he's done, imagine a 122mm gun is pointing out the now front of the tank. By this point, your triple vodka'd brain is probably making you see double vision, and in your drunken haze, you mumble, which gets totally ignored since everybody else is as blackout drunk as you are. When everybody wakes up, they see the absolute weapon of mass confusion they have created and made the only competent decision possible in that point in time, which was to add a... I'm joking, of course. This was only ever a prototype, as if I had to tell you that, but I like my version better. Just to speed through some of the stats for you, view range and concealment are as follows.
We don't care.
The armor profile looks like this, and you can't mount a gun rammer on. For mobility stats, you'd think this tank would have some kind of mechanic like the Crusader SP or the Archer, since the guns are technically mounted backwards, but it thankfully doesn't. Somehow, that 3 bottles deep engineer managed to make the transmission backwards seamlessly, because we're in La La Land. No, like not even... Like, I joke, they didn't even flip the chassis around backwards the way it was supposed to be. You can see all the rollers the wrong way around from the normal ISU or IS. So the suspension on the tank is just flat out wrong and is not even functioning as intended. It goes 40 kph forwards, which would normally be backwards, and still goes 20 kph backwards, which would be forwards. Something useful you could do is start reversing immediately after you shoot, since there's an intended recoil mechanic for double barrel tanks. This actually matters more than you think it would, and proved to be incredibly useful for surprise shooting. Going straight to 22 kph from nothing matters. Since you have no armor and all of this is your engine and fuel tanks, it helps a lot. The recoil while double shooting has always been kind of a meme, so of course it fits with the meme machine. Speaking of double shooting, this tank is entirely designed around that. Like, entirely. As in, it's not great if you were to fire one at a time at all. I have no doubt this tank would be notably more powerful if the interclip, I guess, was 3 seconds or something. But since it's like 7 between shots and just under 9 to reload, you may as well get your money's worth, right? A 2-second double shot timer on top of the very good base accuracy for a 122mm gun standards means this tank hits pretty hard. The only problem sometimes is the hitting part. As with most mid to long range tank destroyers, you're not exactly going to have easy targets to shoot at all the time, and sometimes you'll just miss. Which makes sense. Other times though, yeah, we'll get there. It's important to mention those parts, because normally when people make tank reviews, all they want to do is show some
ace tank gameplay
and never show these things going wrong, shots missing, etc. I bought the whole tank. I'm going to review the whole tank. Besides the camo and view range, because we don't care, if we only reviewed the good parts of a tank, I'm going to have to make a world's new shortest tank review. So no, we're not doing that. Also, do not buy a Skoda T45. You thank me later. What I'm gonna do is dissect every single emotion you're gonna feel while playing this tank. From the extremely good all the way down to as bad as it gets. And as you'd expect from a double barrel tank like this, we're gonna start with dopamine. I don't think I need to explain why this feels so good. One of the reasons it's my current follow sound on Twitch is because it breaks the language barrier. I don't care what language you speak. If you hear something do this, that's cool. And then you get to point it at something else.
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, best king, best king.
Like the clip before, where we uninstalled the game from that one guy's computer. There's a lot of those home run moments that often release natural iterations of the "did that really just happen?" giggle / laugh. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, games so far are alright.
Over there.
Todd, games are alright.
What did you just do?
This is a feeling you get a lot while playing this tank, where all the double shots keep hitting, big orange numbers keep popping up like it's a cashew thumbnail. All the pieces are in place. It's beautiful. Disappointment. Because with great power comes great... How did that miss? It was fully aimed and he wasn't even moving. Never mind. This tank elicits many different reactions towards wherever the heck those shells just went. I have consistently pulled off some of the most ludicrous, non-damaging hits in my entire Watt career in this tank. And I do not understand why. Alrighty. This actually has to stop. I doubled here, and each shell hit like whatever, like here and there or something. The likelihood for this to double ricochet means it has to have hit like some arbitrarily ridiculous position like that and that. 0.3 dispersion is not the worst thing for a sniper tank to have. I've done a lot of things with a lot worse. But oh my god, does this thing miss the easiest shots out of nowhere all the time. You know it's bad when you can tell how I feel based purely on what the camera does during a replay. That is pure disappointment. It does not matter how good it is going, how accurate the guns behave in a battle, what RNG is letting you do in the battle. It is always lurking. You never know when it's gonna show up, but it's just waiting for the absolute perfect moment to ruin. This was my damage record in it, and as you can see, it directly got flawed by a very easy double shot flying high. And then the next one tracked him. This kind of entirely random missing has costed me at least 5 games. Easily. 5 games, at least. Lining up for the easiest shot in the world and then... This is roughly the point where you start to experience the frustration of playing this machine. Penning 1 shot per double, if you even pen 1. I know this sounds fairly normal, but it most certainly is not. Taking double shots where the only reaction you can have is just emptily staring at the monitor in disbelief is just crazy. You'll be that one Steve Harvey meme a lot, both starting as the laughing face and ending as the serious one, and the other way around, where you're gonna be so bummed out and then out of nowhere just And now we're happy again. It's a beautiful mood swing. Your morale while playing this tank is gonna look like a Geometry Dash level all the time. Constantly flipping between peak excitement and the Mariana Trench can get very exhausting, and it definitely got that way while trying to mark this thing. Because I already don't like marking tanks, but this was an experience I can confidently compare to marking the T95, where losing percentage had nearly nothing to do with what you were doing. The battle often happens completely without you, and you're left fighting scraps, if there's even any left at that point. This wasn't helped at all by the fact that it is currently the hardest Russian Tier 8 mark right now, by a margin. I was not having fun by the end of this. And then the mark ended at 95.02, just because that, oh, safe at home plate, right? This fish tank on wheels cannot commit to frontline engagements pretty much at all. It loses hit points incredibly quickly, especially when it gets up tier. The difference between something like 1400 hit points and 1300 hit points is a lot more than 100. There are so many guns at this tier and tiers above it that will comfortably do well over half those hit points in one shot, or 2 shots in a few seconds. And using hardening on this machine really is not worth it. Trading for 780 is great, but sometimes you get hit for 720 in return or more, which can be tough. This is why timing is everything with a tank like this. Anyone who has played an armorless autoloader can vouch for the importance of timing, and oftentimes it is life and death. This tank is no different. Even probably more so than a no armored autoloader does, because it doesn't have a turret. This cinder block with a neck brace on has to turn all the way around a corner to shoot something and then turn all the way back. If you time it right, 800 free damage. I recommend a turbo and IRM for these peek-a-boom types of interactions. But if you time it wrong, broken engine, a fire, etc. Nasty things can and do happen all the time, especially when the front half of your tank is not only the engine, but the fuel tanks too. Your game can turn into an Oranjo Man light tank battle real quick, and before anyone says anything about me roasting Mimi, he wanted to get put into the script, and he said for it to be something like that, so.
Writing a script yet again? Yo, put me in the script. Bet? Alright. Just be like, don't play badly, like Oranjo Man does.
Anyway. Irrelevant of the Orange Man. Engine fires are a flat % rate for when your engine takes damage. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, you don't care, I don't care. But what I do know is that the % fire chance is completely irrelevant for the condition of your engine. A Wolverine and a T-123 have the same chance to get a fire with this here, even if the Wolverine won't actually damage your engine and the E3 would. This results in more fires than anyone really cares to talk about. I just wanted to emphasize it so you won't be surprised if or when you get this tank. It happens not all the time, but it's a roll of the dice. This is not the greatest tank in the world. It is not the strongest tank in the world. It's not the fastest tank in the world. It's not the most flexible tank in the world. It's not the sneakiest tank in the world. It may even be the least sensical tank I have ever seen. Well, maybe. But my god, is this thing ever fun to play. I know having fun in World of Tanks is largely a thing of the past as they keep shoving stats and badges at us for no reason, but I need to point out the significance of having a fun premium tank. It's not as good as a Kari as a tank destroyer. It's not going to make you as much money as a Scorpion G will. It's not as good as a 703 in a Brawl, and it gets two-shotted by a BZ. But my battle count speaks for itself. This is a fun tank. Maybe it's the noise the guns make. Maybe it's seeing big orange numbers show up like it's a slot machine. Maybe it's the potential to just decide to do 400 more damage because the opportunity presents itself. Maybe it's just because it's stupid. Whatever the reason may be, I love this tank. I had a blast with this tank. Okay, well that was a great pun. If you want to see the tank in action, I uploaded an entirely separate video of gameplay because I didn't want to make this video 30 minutes long because you don't want to watch a 30-minute tank review. And if you do, you can go and watch the 15 minutes of gameplay as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'm not gonna shill subscribe, but I do like seeing the number go up and it does make me feel better. So if you want to, go for it.